I'm Travis Weaver, and you're listening to the Good People Project.
Hey, we're rolling. A lot of times, our elected officials can get a bad rap, which, quite frankly, can be deserved. But there are also a ton of genuinely good and decent people stepping up to serve. The Good People Project tells the story of the good and selfless work they're doing. Today's guest for a special Father's Day episode is increasingly retired, but has been a state senator and a Peoria city councilman. He has been involved in nearly 100 different LLCs. He's chaired many organizations, including the United States Polo Association, the Association of Kentucky Fried Chicken Franchisees, and the Peoria County Republican Central Committee. He's been a father figure to literally thousands, as an employer, a mentor, and a small business investor/coach, as well as being an actual father to 3 and a grandfather of 6, soon to be 7 grandkids. He's a very special person to me, as 50% of my DNA came from him. He taught me how to ride horses, multiply by 9s with my fingers, throw a spiral, shoot a free throw, as well as shoot a shotgun. He taught me how to treat people with respect, work hard, honor my creator, love my family, and quite frankly, just how to do things the right way. I still learn from him every day. So, without any further ado, the wise and talented Chuck Weaver. Dad, happy Father's Day.
Hey, happy Father's Day to you. Let's wrap it up, because that was really good.
I know.
I don't want more than that.
Longest intro I've ever done, but I've only been, around for the last 32 years learning the backstory. So, right. Pretty easy intro to get through. Since it's Father's Day, I thought that we could just kind of tell some stories about fatherhood, parenting, what you've learned throughout your journey. Typically, this is more of a political podcast. Obviously, we've both been involved in politics. We might get to that a little bit, but not necessary. So I thought I would tell my favorite story about being parented, and then I'll have you comment on it. And then after that, I'll have you tell your favorite story.
Just have you with you being in the back seat on a vacation.
I'll be friendly. I'll be gracious. And
I don't regret that story.
We won't tell that one unless you'd like to. And then once I'm done, you can tell your favorite parenting story of me, Jesse, or Annie.
All right.
So I think I was 9 or 10 years old playing JFL football. It was Memorial Day. And you never really coached from the sidelines. You certainly never yelled at a ref or a parent or a coach from the sidelines. But there was one time where I was probably not blocking right or not form tackling, and you were kind of trying to say, Trav, do it this way, And I remember I looked at you, and I don't know if I rolled my eyes or I kind of made a hand gesture, and that was it. So it was Memorial Day. Game's over. The rest of the family goes to Aunt Suanne's house for dinner, and you and me spend the entire afternoon building fence. And that was kind of my punishment to get my attention. And I tell that story a lot because it's also the reason why I hate cows. Because you and I spend the entire Memorial Day, the rest of the family is having fun, and you and me are working building fence. And at the end of the day, there's kind of this father-son moment, arm around the shoulder. Gosh, we did good, didn't we, Pa? Yeah, we sure did, boy.
Right.
And these cows stampede right through the fence we just built.
I don't remember that.
And I was like, wow, this was a great parenting opportunity, but man, those cows. So I don't know, it would have been maybe 2002, 2003. I was probably...
Because I built pretty good fence. I'm surprised they didn't get through.
They went right. They didn't know it was there.
Because we
had just built it.
Yeah.
And it was good wood fence. And
I'm sure the lesson was not over form tackling. It was over rolling your eyes at your father. Okay, good. I just making sure I wasn't a zealot here for form tackling.
Yeah, no, that one, it really stuck with me. I think about it a lot just as far as, I think especially because when we were growing up, a lot of our punishment, we would get grounded, we would get spanked, but a lot of our punishment was work related, which is the benefit of growing up on a farm. Is I think you really learn the result of your consequences. There's not much punishment to sit in the air conditioning. Punishment is...
one day I had you sit in the air conditioning and watch me work.
Yeah, that was in, I think, Louisville, Kentucky, maybe?
No, it was out here.
We were at we were playing polo somewhere, and I remember we had the white pickup truck that looked kind of over this field, and you locked me in it and said, watch, this is how you work.
Yeah, I remember it being out here, and I said...
Maybe it's twice.
Might have been. You're just not moving very fast.
Yeah.
I want you to watch how it works. He said, Dad, you don't have to do it alone. I said, no, this time I'm going to do it alone.
Yeah.
He felt bad.
Yeah.
Which was exactly. Go's been one of my best motivators.
No doubt. Okay, so that's mine. I'm curious when you think about Jesse, Annie, and I, just parenting stories where you thought, wow, I nailed that one.
Wow. I'm going to have to come back to that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I thought you were going to say.
Okay.
Can you tell our listeners about RTP? I won't call it a disorder because it intentionally was not a disorder, but it is something that approximately one child has ever been diagnosed with. So tell us about the RTP story.
I will. I'm just trying to think of what the
rapid thought process.
Yeah, I know that, but what was the other diagnosis?
ADD.
ADD, yeah. It was ADHD or ADD. So Travis was not listening well in school, and we were concerned he had ADD because every child who doesn't listen to school has ADD, right? I mean, how have you had to get over you?
Yeah.
So we took him in for diagnosis, and we were going to have it back in. Can we look at that camera at all? Or look at you?
Just look at me, it's fine.
Okay, cool. And we're going to have the results back in a week, and we were away on a trip for a week. I'm thinking, what a crazy thing to tell a kid you have a disorder.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not going to do that. So I'm trying to prepare you for the diagnosis. And I said, Travis, we just got you tested for something called RTP, rapid thought process, which just so people know is something I made up myself.
Yeah. I'm the lone survivor of RTP.
Yeah. And basically what it means is your mind works differently, and you're going to have to figure out how to get your thoughts into tighter circles instead of letting the rabbit run every different direction. And some of that's about discipline, which ADD may never be about discipline. I don't know. And we got back and you didn't have it. All you needed was someone to kick your butt and say, sit in your stinking chair and learn.
Yeah.
So, great. So,
yeah.
I was trying to protect you from this.
Well, real, not real, legitimate, and that's neither here nor there, but to tell a child that you have a disorder. And a great solution to it is self-discipline, and maybe in conjunction with other things.
Yeah.
But I think once you hear, I have a disorder, that means I'm a victim. What pills do I need to take to fix my disorder, as opposed to personal responsibility, which I think is what you were trying to teach.
That was what I was trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm no doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So let's see. So we picked on me, Jesse, Annie, parenting stories. Anytime you just sat back and thought, wow, I did a good job on that one.
Yeah. Annie was fibbing. She had a friend.
Oh, yeah. This is a good
that
one.
was fibbing. And I started seeing Annie act like that friend who was a really great little girl, but she fibbed.
Yeah.
And Annie fibbed to me. And I pulled her into the bathroom and I said, Annie, you didn't lie, but you kind of fudged part of that story. And I'm going to have to let you know I can't. If you and Travis get in a fight, I got to believe him. And she goes, oh, Dad, you can't believe Travis. Mm-hmm. You got to believe me when we get into a fight. And I said, no, until you prove that you're an honest person. I've got to assume he's telling me the truth and you aren't, because I just caught you in something.
Yeah.
And it broke her heart.
Yeah.
And I said, but Annie, I'll do you a favor. I won't tell Travis that I'm going to believe him instead of you, because that would have been disastrous.
Yeah.
Right. But Annie is one of the most honest people in the world. And she was then too. I think she was 10 years old maybe, or something like that.
Yeah. I sort of had a similar story. I think the first time, I think probably the only time that you guys ever caught me with alcohol, I was 17 or 18 and
caught you.
Yeah. And the wrath that came down.
Well, I think we built fence that time.
We definitely built fence that time, but the punishment that came down was probably the most I've ever had. I mean, I didn't have a ton of harsh punishments, but was maybe 20% from the actual alcohol and 80% because I made up a story for you and Mom about where I was and where it came from and this and that. And I think that's a great lesson in parenting, is as long as there's integrity, as long as I know what you're doing, we'll deal with whatever the issue is. But
truth is everything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you're an honest kid. So it turned out. Thank you.
Next, given that it's Father's Day and you spend a lot of time mentoring young men who are trying to become fathers or who are fathers or having issues with their own fathers, what would you say that most young fathers or fathers that are having problems are missing? And I guess maybe even before we answer that, let me start by saying, I think that we both agree it's not always what fathers are missing. A lot of times it's what kids are missing, which is a dad present.
Yes.
So I think before we answer this, for any dad listening, just showing up is 50%, being present in the kid's life. But for that other 50, now that they are present, what are a couple things that you wish you could go back and tell yourself?
So literally, I've had this conversation with 3 people today, and I have everybody start with a personal mission statement on what is their real objective of what they want to accomplish. And then we talk about work-life balance, on how you're doing things that really revolve around that, and how you also have time for your kids. And I think men, and I'm sure women as well, but I understand men better, they live in a perfect storm when they get into their 30s to 40s, where it's, new marriage, bringing kids into the world, trying to figure out how to father, parent well. Their job, they're still trying to build their career, build their reputation there, whatever they're doing in the community, whatever they're doing for faith, whatever they're doing with their buddies that are now drifting away, and how to keep my old friends, and what they're doing physically. That's a perfect storm. And one particular woman I met with today, I was talking to her about what does she need to get out of her life so she has time for family. And it's about work-life balance and having priorities right. Well, I think one thing with you guys, I work pretty hard when I work. I think you guys all know that about me. And I will always take your phone calls. Whenever I'm sitting in a meeting, if a phone rings, I look at it, and I always tell who I'm with, that's my wife, I take it. And I've never had anybody frown at that. And I'll do the same thing with you kids. That's always one of my kids, I better take it. But Lori knows that when I answer the phone, I'm saying I'm in the middle of something, you got something quick. So she knows we're not going to spend 2 minutes on the phone, and she downloads it really fast. But her style and mine are a little bit different. During the day, she'll want to talk deep on things, long on things. And she and I have come to an agreement that when I sit at that kitchen table at 7:00 at night, I will be there until she's done talking. And that's when we have to try to really do it. And with you kids too, our kitchen table at night was a place that it was pretty sacred. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think, in addition to that, I think that you really have a strength of intentionality. And I think when the people hear balance, that means, how do I spend more time with my family and less time working? How do I spend more time enjoying life and less time working? And that may be a component to it. But I think, for you, what I saw from you growing up is, when you work hard and you work intentionally. Hard. And when you're with your family, you're with them intentionally. It's family dinners, you're having deep conversations. When you're playing, you really like to have fun. And, hiking's been big for you lately, but polo, being with your forum group men, there's just not a lot of wasted time. And I think if you want to carry a full plate, you've got to be intentional with your time. But when I had a corporate job at CAT, I'd had people that were my coworkers that would complain about working 70 or 80-hour weeks. And then I would see them have 90-minute lunches, and I would see them go on strolls to the cafeteria and chat with their friends in the cafeteria while they got a pop for the afternoon. And just because you're at an office for 80 hours does not mean that you're working for 80 hours a week. And I think a big part of that balance is just wherever you're at, be intentional about being really engaged while you're there. One time I heard John Eldredge say, the best thing a dad can do for his kids is love their mom. And I think probably beyond that, and then maybe this is what Eldredge actually said, is that I think the most important thing a dad can do for his kids is display the father's love. You're the father. How do you display the father's love? Because I think that encompasses.
You say father's love there, you mean God's love. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much verified statistically that people see God as being the same personality as their father. And when you start talking to a person about their faith, usually you say, tell me about your dad, and the stories line up pretty closely. So I'm not God.
Yeah.
You do that, right?
Even though you might have put the fear of God.
We put the fear of God. Yeah.
I think another big part of parenting, I should preface, I don't have any kids, so I'm by no means don't take my advice. But I think a lot of people think it's about not making mistakes. And I think more importantly, it's about learning from those mistakes. And there's a story I'm going to ask you to tell about when we were kids that you told us about the first person that you had to let go as an employer, and then how you learned about how to let people go subsequently. And I thought that was just an interesting story for you to share. I don't know the first time I heard it as a 5, 6, 7-year-old. I don't know how many times I've heard it by now.
Right.
But I think
it was just... tell you again.
Yeah, give it to me once more. I'll add it to my tally. But I think it's just so great because at a very young age, we were taught, you're going to do things pretty crappy the first time that you do them. Yeah. And in some instances, it's even going to blow up in your face.
And it did.
But that doesn't mean that you stop doing it. You're going to get better the second time and more time subsequently. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I can't believe my dad let me do this. I'm 16 years old and I am running a restaurant. for the night shifts at age 16. And I'm managing kids who are 16, 17, and 18, right? And so they had no respect for me. And I had one young lady that just wasted a lot of time at work. So what I did was I didn't put her on the schedule, but I had places I could put her on the schedule. And my plan was to bring her in and say, look, I want you to tell me how many hours you want to work this week when you will really work this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you those hours. She saw the schedule before I had a chance to have the conversation, and her name was on it with no hours after it. And she was very angry, and she swore like a lot of good men could swear, right? And I don't remember why she had keys. She might have helped close sometime or something, but she threw her keys at me. And that was a bad day.
Yeah.
I'm saying, wait. You know, you didn't hear the whole story. So what I've learned since then, you got to give people plenty of warning.
Mm-hmm.
First, you got to train them right
Mm-hmm.
of what's expectation. And when they're not doing it right, you need to let them know that it's unacceptable, politely. And, you know, people use this sandwich theory. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
Give them something good, then tell them something bad, then tell them something good. I think that's total
I
BS.
totally agree. I think it's so dumb.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is the person is good and the problem is bad. And I'll start with that. So, you know, you're a really good person and I'm glad you work here, but this problem has to change. And after a couple of those conversations, it doesn't change. Then you sit down. But I walked into a restaurant one day and I caught a woman stealing something from me. And I took her in the back room and sat down to have a conversation about letting her go. And she stood up and cried and hugged me and said, I'm sorry I let you down, Mr. Weaver. Now that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we go. You know, I've used this a lot lately. Just from a political perspective of sometimes people get sideways with precinct committeemen or something that aren't doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people, you call an employee in a restaurant the day after you let them go. You know the answer to that one?
No.
Customer.
Yeah.
Right? They're your customer. The day after you let them go, you want to come back in and buy chicken.
Yeah.
Right? So, and same thing with any of our people in our party that you sign up for a job, don't do it well. Day after they're not doing it, they're a voter.
Right.
We need to keep them engaged.
I remember you telling me a story that when you were in like the 3rd or 4th grade, it struck you that one day you were going to have your own kids.
I think I was over about 8th grade.
Okay, 8th grade. And so from a young age, maybe this is normal, but you realized that you were going to be dad and how much I think we're looking forward to that. So I'm just curious, from that point, I'm guessing your antenna was a little bit up watching grandpa, watching your own dad and just trying to learn from him. So I like to take this next question in 2 parts. The first part, what would you say stuck with you the most as far as what you should do?
As a father?
Learn from him that you wanted to pass along.
Father.
But if you're comfortable, also what you saw him do that you decided that you specifically didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just to preface by saying Grandpa was just a fantastic man, left a wonderful legacy, but even the best make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so growing up with him, and I'm sure you learned a lot from him because you worked together in the fields, you worked together at KFC, you spent a lot of time together. And I'm just curious, you know, some of the strengths that you saw in him that you feel like you've really passed along to your kids the best.
So my dad led by example, not with a lot of words. Mom, when I think of stories, Bible stories or something, those are from Mom. Dad was more about leading by example. And it's something I did with you guys. When you think about parenting styles, there's high praise and high punishment. Can I go down? Can I explain that?
Yeah. Please.
High praise and high punishment. And if you put that into quadrants where you have high praise, high punishment, high praise, low punishment, low praise, low punishment, high punishment, low praise, the 4 quadrants. And what is the most effective way to parent? High praise, high punishment is the highest, or the best way to parent. Now, punishment doesn't have to be harsh punishment. It can be, hey, go sit down for a minute. I'll talk to you in a second.
It's more about frequency than intensity?
It's about frequency and consistency, right? And praise does not have to be, you get the award for being the 5th best team out of 5 teams, right? For the employees I work with, I'm saying thank you Hey, great job on that. We really appreciate. Well, I appreciate what you're doing. It's not always you're the best, right? But it's a just positive affirmation and appreciation. For punishment, it could be just a frown, or I want you to go think about that, and let's talk about it a little bit. But that's the most effective. But what people don't realize, the second most effective, do you know this?
I don't. I know about the quadrants, but I don't know how they rank.
Is low praise, low punishment. And the example the guy gave that told me this was Bill Clinton was a latchkey kid, where he would come home and make his own meals. He learned how to manage stuff.
Yeah.
My dad was a low praise, low punishment person. And this is crazy. So I come back from, I practiced law 2 years. I planned to get back in. My plan was always run the family business, which I did. And first day, I said, Dad, what do you want me to do? He said, always wear a suit. Anything else? Nope. Go to work. Honest to God. Go to Newton, Iowa, and Donna's going to train you on how to run a restaurant for 2 weeks. So you get 2 weeks of training me today. We train people forever. Yeah, but it's more complex today. So that was what I got from Dad. And the way I tried to apply that for you guys, and I've got a thought I want to add to this, is if you could get hurt, I was going to use high praise, high punishment. Okay? And if it's something costs a lot of money, or a horse could get hurt if you did it wrong, I'm going to train real deeply. But if it's something where you're not going to get hurt, I just would tell you to go get it done. I mean, I would have you guys build fence, because there's not a lot of damage to taking a fence out and rebuild it. And I've got so many stories of kids that I'd have them build fence, and I didn't give them much training. I said, I want this fence to look like that fence. Yeah. And then I would come back and I would say, how's this look compared to that? And they go, not very good. I said, no.
Yeah.
This is a bad day for me, because I got to pay you to do it right.
Yeah.
And I already paid you to do it wrong, but it's a really good day for you.
Yeah.
Because the lesson you will remember the rest of your life, that Mr. Weaver made you build the same fence twice.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I was maybe 5 or 6, so Jesse was maybe 11 or 12. And we were driving somewhere, and we didn't have a hotel. And I feel like cell phones were still kind of new at the time, so I don't know what it would have been. And so Jesse might have been younger. He might have been 8 or 9, so I might have been really young. And you said, Jess, why don't you call there and get a hotel for us? And I remember him sitting in the captain's chair saying, how am I supposed to do that? What do I tell him? And you were like, here's the number, call him, tell him about a hotel. And I remember, I was like 4, so I don't remember how long this went. But I remember him like looking at the phone, Mom, do I really have to do this? Yes, you really have to do this. But what harm can there be? There's none. So sit in that captain's chair for as long as it takes you to dial to get the courage. And the person on the other end is going to sell you what you asked for. So it's pretty easy.
So your sister Annie had me read the book Understanding Poverty. And I think that's where I heard this, that one of the biggest difference between middle income and low income kids is middle income families have their kids do things like order off the menu, where low income kids are not getting that. Or maybe something where you didn't get the grade you wanted, go talk to the teacher, and making the kid do it instead of, right? So I hope I did that right for you.
Yeah.
I had a note here on something else. My goal for you guys, and I don't know if I ever told you this, I remember telling Jesse this. At 18, I'm done parenting.
I remember.
Okay. I'm still your parent. I love you, but you are now an adult that I love more than anybody in the world. And I'm going to treat you like I treat adults I love, which is, if you're going down a wrong path, they may say, how's this? What are you thinking? What's your plan? But I'm not going to recommend, here's what you ought to do. I'll ask you questions to help you figure it out. And so then the goal, the advantage you had was, you were probably, how much younger are you than Jess?
4.5.
4 years.
Yeah.
So you're probably 13, 14 when I came up with this idea that I want to be done parenting at 18. And then what do I need to teach you at every age so you're ready to be done with parenting at 18? And the reality is, you ought to be able to teach a kid a lot of stuff in 18 years, and you need to let them make mistakes, but it's time to let them go. And I was in a Bible study with a group, and also in a working group one time, and I was in the family business, and there was some frustration in the family, and I was talking to these adults about their relationship with their parents. all of them said they still judge me. And you don't listen to people that judge you, right? I mean, about how I parent. I mean, you have never heard me say a negative word to Annie or Jesse about their parenting. It's always, you're doing a great job. These kids are amazing. Yeah. Anyway, I'm preaching now. Sorry.
So the quadrants, you might say, is something that you took from him to pass on. And then how about just things that you decided that you were going to do differently? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I really worked to opt into high praise, high punishment, a lot of feedback. And you're great at taking feedback. You are. You're just great at it. Ever since that day you rolled your eyes at me from Forbes Ackley.
Yeah, it's hard, especially being an adult. I don't know that I'm great at it because it's hard to take advice. It's hard to take advice, and it's hard to catch somebody when they're in a frame of mind to accept it. But I know that you've been around 35 more years than me, and that you love me more than anybody else. And so if anybody's going to give me advice that's for my benefit, it's you. Even though I know that, it doesn't mean I always practice tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Oh, I know. My hope is I'm never giving advice.
Yeah.
I'm asking questions to help you process.
Yeah.
Right. And I hope I'm doing that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought you might go down is just for things that you didn't want to pass on. It was very clear to me that you didn't want to pass on a legacy of really family business. Just because I think now everybody in our family is in a really, really good spot, but we had certainly our share of awkward Christmases.
It's hard to split up a pie.
Yeah. And, anybody that I meet that is in a family business, especially with the several generations, I just say, God bless you, because everything on the outside looks like it's motherhood and apple pie, sunshine and rainbows, but it's not. And for us, I remember, I think I was maybe 10, and you said, do you know how much I'm going to leave you when I die? And I kind of got excited. How much? And you said, nothing. You said, do you know how many jobs I'm ever going to give you? And I was like, oh no, what jobs am I going to get? And you said, no. Which basically, that's low praise, low punishment. Go out, figure it out. I'll be here to help, but there's not going to be any handouts. And I think that probably just came from,
I'm going to leave you a little something.
Yeah. And then I think I was maybe 23 or 4, and you said, hey, I'm working on the will. And I was like, I see my name in it. When did this change? But
when I realized you weren't going to take advantage.
Yeah. But I think that probably just came out of working in the family business, is knowing that you got to, if we work together because it works out, great. But, that can't be what.
That's not a warm stall for you. Right.
Yeah. One story I thought about Grandpa that I thought you might say for what you want to pass on is his character of generosity. And I was thinking about the story about you guys going through the field after you had gotten the corn. And I think that's biblical.
Yep.
And so maybe you could share that story.
I can't tell you where it is in the Bible. I'm going to say Ecclesiastes, but I'm not sure. But the guidance in the Bible was leave grain in the field for poor people. And it's called gleaning, that the poor can come through and clean up everything that's not really cleaned up well. So I was 5. We had an Econoline pickup truck. You don't even know what that is. I don't think, do you? Econoline? They were pretty cool looking. Yeah, piece of junk. But Dad brought the youth group out, and he drove that through the field, and we walked behind him and threw the extra corn. At that time, we had a 2-row picker that missed ears all the time. Any ears on the ground, we threw it in the truck, took it to the market, sold it, and gave the money to a charity. But what a great story.
Yeah.
I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember where I was standing in the field when Dad told me what we're doing,
Yeah, and I think that that's a legacy that has been passed on, because we certainly need people that will write checks to organizations. But I think what that lesson teaches is you got to write a check, but you also got to roll up your sleeves sometimes and jump in and help. And I remember you doing setup, tear down for our middle school youth group for Quest when we were growing up.
Yeah.
All the things that you've done for Youth Farm boys, for juvenile delinquent boys, to mentor them. And then I look at Jesse. I'm sure he writes checks, but he does Young Life, and I do Young Life as well. And Annie does teen moms and counseling for grief victims, and it's just such a great legacy from Grandpa that hey, you got to donate financially.
So do you remember the story I told at his funeral about that?
Share it.
I was confused about, in in the business, I mean, I worked for him. It was tough because you had to know where every penny was. In the restaurant business, people take pennies, right? And money would come into the accounts, and then he would pass it out like crazy. I'm thinking, what is this about? That, there seemed like such an inconsistency that we're watching our money, but then we're giving away so much money. I realized it's stewardship.
Yeah.
You don't waste it here, and you're generous with it there. And, well, what a great concept,
So here you are. I don't want to age you, but let's see. This month you'll be 68.
68.
So you could be retired. You could spend your winters with your toes in the sand, but you don't. So I'm just, for the listeners, what keeps you going? What do you have that you feel like you have left to accomplish through the mentoring you do with small businesses, the mentoring you do with young men and women, Peoria County Republicans? You've got a pretty full plate for a retired person.
Yeah.
And what's it all about?
I've never been happier. I don't have to do anything on any day, but I feel every day. I had 3 mentees today at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock and 11:30, and had texts like crazy on working on other stuff. I just want to keep my brain good, and I want to keep giving back. I don't want to ever have a regret that I didn't do more. I got one of the, I'll show it to you when we're done here, a text from a young man that I've been taking to church for about 2 years yesterday. This morning, I got the text, and about how we've changed his life. And he said he'd never had a good family. He sees what love looks like. And I cried when I got it. I shared it with my mentees this morning about what's life about. I said, this is what life is about. You want fulfillment. You want joy. Help people have a better life. And that's so rewarding.
What role do you think that you play in expanding conservative values? And maybe I'll chime in on what I think you do great about that.
So I'm chairman of our party, and I draw a picture for people that, let's say our party looks like that, okay, with the more left side of our party and the right side of our party. Our party is a secular party. The training I do, Christian leadership in a political environment, is definitely spiritual directed. And those are people I'm training that hopefully some of them get into politics. But my duty as party chairman is to accept everybody who wants to be conservative. I believe that culture follows leadership. And what will happen is that this part will thin out and this part will get bigger. And I hope we don't lose a single person out of everybody that's there as we bring in persuadable voters into our party. They're coming in and we're migrating them right, because I'm going to maybe get a little detailed here, but I have 3 objectives. I want to teach people to explain, be able to explain, not live it, be able to explain it and hopefully live it, why social conservatism causes healthy societies and why fiscal conservatism causes healthy economies. I say it that way on purpose because I had a woman who I don't think respects me very much, very progressive, and I meet with some of the people I meet with are not as conservative as me, and I said it to her that way. What do you mentor on? And I said, well, it's Christian leadership in a political environment. She said, well, I bet your Christian looks different than my Christian. Well, I hope not. I hope we're all kind of trying to do the same thing. She said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, I'm not trying to push my belief system on you. And she pushed me. And I said, well, I think fathers have to lead their families. She said, I agree with that. And I said, I think that a lot of LGBTQ things is confusing kids. And I'm going to have complete respect for anybody's lifestyle. They're welcome to it. But I think sometimes there's a lot of damage that comes out of that from kids that don't fully understand who they are. She said, oh, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And we went down 2 or 3 more things about when does life begin. Yeah. She agreed with me on when life began.
Yeah.
But she would have supported J.B. Pritzker on 9-month abortion.
Yeah.
You know? And the reason those first 2, and then the third one that goes with that is, why do healthy societies and healthy economies allow our country to stay free and safe and to be globally competitive, right? And that's what's wrong with our country.
Yeah.
Our debt will kill us.
Yeah.
32 trillion, 34 trillion to kill us.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, our social fabric will be our downfall.
The thing that I'm most excited about your leadership is, I think there's a ton of people that can parrot the talking points, can say what Ben Shapiro and Donald Trump tell you the right answer. There's very few people that actually know why we believe what we believe.
Right.
And if we can have 100 people in Peoria County that actually understand why conservative values work and are effective and are not rude, not aggressive like the left would have you think that they are, but are just honest, hardworking, the right way to do things, and the right way to treat people, and the right way to raise a family, and the right way to hold yourself in business across the board. If you understand those things, they're, to your point, pretty hard to disagree with.
Right.
But
you have to explain them differently than what the narratives are on both sides, so people aren't locked into the narrative.
Yeah.
And you have to get people asking about it.
Yeah. And I think we can do a much better job of that, because the way that we can win that battle is by having knowledgeable people that really understand why it's the right way to run a country in neighborhoods. And then they tell their friends and families and people. And now you're getting a more knowledgeable citizenry, as opposed to how much money can we raise to get our message out this cycle. You're really teaching people about why this works. And it's not very fruitful in the short term, but in the long term, that's how you fix it.
Hopefully we're living our lives right according to those things.
Yeah. You know what's funny? A lot of people say, oh, your dad was in politics, that must be why you're in politics. And first of all, I don't think about you as somebody who's a politician. I mean, you were a senator for 5 years. You were a city councilman for a couple years, but that's not really, it's less of they're both part-time jobs. So you've been a businessman since you were 20.
Right.
You've been a politician for a decade.
Right.
So I don't think of you as that way. People will say, oh, your dad was a senator, that must be why you want to do this. This must be why you understand things.
But what dad told you, don't do it.
That's what's funny. Is not only you're not the reason why I'm doing this, you're the reason why I almost didn't. Because, for anybody listening, we had a conversation with the man who was your campaign manager and is now mine. And he said, do you want to think about running for this seat? And I said, hell no.
Yeah.
And you said, good, I'm glad you said it, because I didn't know I was going to get you off of it if you said yes. And then about a month later, you and I both said, I said, I've kind of been marinating on that. And you said, I've been thinking about it too. It could be a good time. And, but I think.
Well, mainly the need was there.
Yeah. And I think anytime when I'm recruiting somebody, if I say, do you want to run for this? And they say, hell yeah, I want to, I'm kind of backtracking because I might not be in it for the right reason. But if they say no, then I double down, because now I know you got somebody who's really going to be selfless.
I recruited Win Stoller, and the day I tried to get him to do it, he said, I have no interest in politics.
Yeah.
And I said, Win, that's why you're the right guy for it. You got to be able to walk away. It can't own you. And it can't be your identity. Yeah. It's your identity. And well, I heard you say this.
Yeah.
How do I tell people that this can't be important to me? It's a very important job, but it can't be important to me.
Yeah.
That I won't walk away instead of folding for the demands of the party or the General Assembly, whatever the case is.
Yeah, and I kind of even try to not like it very much. People say, are you having fun? Or do you like it? And I say, I like ice cream.
Yeah.
Right. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm doing what the right thing is that I should be doing.
Yeah.
But man, if I met a politician who said, man, I just love passing laws.
That's right.
Oh boy, this sounds like a Democrat.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, that's all that I have. Unless you got anything you'd like to share, we can wrap up here. But it's really just been a pleasure, and man, we could sit here for hours, I'm sure, and just hash out all the stories. But we got to say something.
It'd be you and me sitting here, here watching.
Yeah.
Right. I love you.
I love
Great
you,
kid,
thanks,
man.
Dad. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining.
I'm Travis Weaver, and you're listening to the Good People Project.